Matt, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited about this discussion about the importance of flourishing for leaders and for leadership. So I guess, Matt, what are your initial thoughts? Why does it matter so much?
Well, I think it's important for us to consider what flourishing is before we get to leadership. And so I think oftentimes organizations will have a wellness program. And this focuses on reducing anxiety or reducing depression, kind of getting people back to some baseline of mental health. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're flourishing. It doesn't mean that they're really thriving or living up to their full potential, that they have complete well-being. So it's helpful to have these partial programs, and they're necessary, but flourishing really focuses on complete well-being, bringing all of the different domains that matter to people together. And at the Human Flourishing Program, we've studied the preferences that people have, and we know that they do care a great deal about happiness and life satisfaction. There's lots of work that's been conducted on that, but they also care about other things, meaning and purpose, close social relationships, character and virtue, for example. And a lot of organizations don't prioritize these other aspects of flourishing, close social relationships, financial material stability necessary to sustain these various domains of flourishing. Seeing how all of these domains fit together gives us a better understanding of complete well-being or flourishing. And we also pay attention not just to how individuals are doing, but how the community as a whole is doing. And so this might involve other domains like proficient leadership, healthy practices at the community level, a strong sense of mission as a group, and others. And so these types of domains are suggesting that the individual will flourish even more if they're in a healthy community. If we pay attention to these things, we can understand the individual's relationship to the community and how community flourishing affects individual flourishing and vice versa. So we want to understand flourishing in a way that promotes well-being for all people, and in a way that is most complete or enables what we would refer to as whole person well-being and whole community well-being. So we want to understand how the well-being of our individuals and our groups then relates to worldwide well-being or planetary well-being. So you can begin to ask questions about flourishing at multiple levels and see how these different levels relate. So that's sort of the first point. In terms of leadership, oftentimes we think about a great leader as finding a way to help an organization meet its particular objectives or its goals. And that's important, but that's not enough. That's not really what flourishing is, because if an organization is meeting its goals at the expense of the well-being of others outside of the organization, or sometimes even at the expense of its own organizational members who might be burning out, for example, as the organization achieves its goals, then people are dissatisfied with that as a model of flourishing. That might make sense in terms of short-term profits, but it may not translate into complete well-being or flourishing. So it's important for leaders to obviously make sure that the organization is achieving its goals, but to achieve those goals in such a way that the organization and everybody within it becomes a good steward of the broader system. And the system is what is creating either the vital conditions that are necessary for everybody to thrive, or interfering with those vital conditions so that there's a lot of deficits and a lot of people who are really suffering. So the well-being in the nation network has a very helpful model talking about how organizational leaders, and everybody really can be an organizational leader, not just people at the top of the organizational pyramid, but everybody within an organization can be a leader. And these leaders should really become focused not just on organizational goals, but on being a good steward of the broader system, shifting us out of what they call an adversity economy and into a well-being economy. And a well-being economy promotes vital conditions for all people without exception.
Thank you so much, Matt. Could you possibly tell us what some of these vital conditions are? So if you're an aspiring leader or already in a leadership position, what are these vital conditions we should be thinking about?
Yeah, so obviously there's basic needs that must be met for health and safety and reasonable housing, reliable transportation. But those are just sort of the foundations. But really people are interested in a thriving natural world, in having an impact on the planet that is creating positive externalities rather than negative externalities. So not exceeding the ecological thresholds of the immediate environment and the wider world. So finding a way to meet these basic needs that also promotes thriving within the natural world and involves people in meaningful work in a way that they're able to feel good about what they're doing, that they're contributing to the greater good, that they're building civic muscle, that they're creating strong communities. And so if we're organized in ways that foster these kinds of vital conditions, they're not independent of each other. It's not about finding a way to have good housing for people at the expense of the environment. It's trying to find a way that you can bring all of these into alignment so that every aspect of the system is flourishing and thriving. And so in that sense, you become a caretaker of vital conditions, not just a leader of a focal organization, which it is, again, important for leaders to focus on what their organization is doing. But we all collectively, and I think the COVID crisis brings this out in a very visible way. It was always present, but maybe not everybody saw it to the same extent. The way that we are interrelated and the way that our well-being depends on the well-being of people on the other side of the globe.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much. And what a fabulous vision of a holistic model of flourishing for leaders to consider as they go on their journey. And hopefully a lot of those things that you've mentioned will come up through the course, like particularly positive relationships and actually providing people with meaningful work that makes a contribution to the world and the improvement of community muscle, which is a wonderful phrase. So thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Katie.